Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook. Let's talk about the latest episode of Stargirl. It was called Summer School Chapter 9. It starts out with a flashback to decades ago, where we basically see Eclipso's origin. A man named Bruce Gordon mentions finding the diamond on an island while wishing he'd never found it at the same time, as his life has turned for the worse since then. But the diamond tempts him to let it kill his lost love's husband so that he can be with her, and it then sort of takes him over. In the present, a bad storm approaches the town, and Courtney urges Pat to do something to get Rick out of jail and worries that Eclipso is getting stronger, saying that she's going after him. Pat flashes back to a child's funeral that he attended, along with the original JSA, at which Jay Garrick is present. John Wesley Shipp's Jay Garrick showed up in this episode. Finally, we get to see him. It was awesome. Jay explains that the diamond came from an island, and then Pat basically comes back to himself, and he cuts himself on a thorn, I guess, while handling some flowers. But he then briefly sees a casket in the house, and he hears voices. We then jump over to Mike, who notices that the house is very cold. And then Pat has another flashback to the funeral, during which he talks with Starman before Shade shows up and disappears with Starman, who goes over to talk to him. Back in the present, Pat looks back at old pictures and has a different flashback, this time to working on the car at the JSA headquarters, when Starman arrives and explains that the Shade had told him all about Eclipso, and that to stop the evil diamond, the host has to die, has to be killed. And that, of course, doesn't sit well with him or Pat. We then flash back to the present. We see Ice Pick seemingly visiting Courtney's mother, and he tells her that he's behind the storm and it's his rebirth, before Shade helps her snap out of it, as Ice Pick's kid seemingly visits with Mike at the house and menaces him. Pat comes across Starman's original outfit in his basement, which I don't understand because I thought Courtney altered that and turned it into an outfit for herself. But anyway, he seems to somehow get blood on his hands from touching it, which he tries to wash off as what appears to be Eclipso's original form, Bruce, watching him in the background. In another flashback, Hourman, Starman, Flash, and Wildcat tell Pat that they need him to break a tie vote about whether or not they're going to have to kill that guy Bruce, who apparently has already defeated a bunch of other heroes, including Dr. Fate, which I'm kind of dubious of. He's very powerful. Of course, Jay Garrick, Flash, voted no, we're not going to kill him. And that's my Flash, man. I've said this before, that the Jay Garrick character in this series is just really well written and really well portrayed by John Wesley Shipp. He just comes off like the real thing, like he just stepped out of the comic book page, like a classic, 40s hero, like a classic, I don't want to say man's man, but a classic sort of hero, almost as the archetype itself. He's got all the dashing qualities of those heroes. He's got all the class of those heroes. He's got all the earnestness of those heroes. And it just blows me away every time we see John as Jay. What I don't understand is why they used him so little in this episode. It was hyped up. Oh, Jay Garrick's going to show up. And he had like 3 lines. So I don't know why they did that. Hopefully we'll see more of Jay. Hopefully we'll see him in action, not kind of just standing there. I don't know why they did that. If I were John Wesley Shipp, I'd be kind of pissed that that's all they did with me. But hopefully we'll see more. Surprisingly, Starman voted yes, alongside Wildcat and Hourman, making it a 3-2 vote. And Starman asks Pat to get the car ready. Back in reality, Pat sees a vision of Bruce shooting at him, as the same 3 heroes seem to be backing him up. And Courtney shows up to dispel the vision by lighting her staff directly in front of Pat, after having apparently also rescued Mike from the vision he was having. And Pat tells her about how the JSA previously stopped Eclipso by killing Bruce Gordon, which is what caused the JSA to split up for a time out of grief, out of, I guess, disgust at themselves or whatever, until the ISA showed up and the JSA got back together, after which Pat says it was never the same. And he also tells her that her mother knew about this already. That, of course, didn't sit well with Courtney. She goes to confront her mother and ends up with arguing with both her mother and Pat, as we see Eclipso outside the house in the form of the little kid looking on through the window. Now, I didn't really know this, but I guess he didn't just shapeshift into the appearance, into having the appearance of a kid. He's actually possessed that kid, much like he possessed the Bruce person. So in order to kill Eclipso, get rid of Eclipso, get rid of the diamond, they'd have to kill a little kid. So obviously that's going to be tricky. What I don't understand is how that works. Like, in other words, how did they kill Bruce in the past? We saw the JSA and Shade try to fight Eclipso a couple of episodes ago, and it didn't go well. They got their ass kicked. In fact, so did the members of the new ISA get their asses kicked. So if he's that powerful that they can't kill him and they had to resort to killing Bruce, how is that even a different thing, number one, if he took over the guy's body? Like, I don't understand. And then how did they in fact kill Bruce? Like, what? That's like saying in order to kill Superman, we have to kill Clark Kent. But you can't kill Clark Kent because he's as powerful as, you know what I'm saying? It's the same. Like, what? How does it make any sense? So I don't understand what's going on there. Hopefully that will become more clear. The good news is that it looks like next week we're going to see Green Lantern. We're going to see Green Lantern's daughter come back and be the new Green Lantern, which I was saying before, I figured was going to happen sooner rather than later, because they're really going to need her power, her abilities to defeat Eclipso. So apparently the team figures that out next week and they go find her. So that's going to be really cool. I'm looking forward to that. The show continues to be good. Like I said, I don't understand the whole thing about killing Bruce if you can't beat Eclipso, but I thought it was a good episode. It was mostly flashback. I like that about it. I like that they're showing, the past, because, it would be silly if we just had a new Justice League and they never showed the origins and they never showed, that there's a through line. It's one thing to say that there's a through line, but it's another thing to show that there's a through line. So, especially in the case of Dr. Midnight, who isn't actually dead. So that's going to be very cool to see how that whole thing goes. They didn't really touch on that this episode. Like I said, I hope they explain this business about how they're going to kill the one entity if they can't even defeat the other one when they're the same being. And I hope they end up using John as Jay Garrick more, if not in the next couple of episodes at some point before the season ends, because he's just so good. The character's so good and John's so good in the part. And again, no, I'm not just saying that because I happen to be kind of sort of in a very distant way friendly with John on the Facebook. But anyway, I'll be back to review next week's episode. Until then, I wish you all peace and long